Okay, I'm going to go over tables 4.5, yeah, 4.5 to 4.9 in grammar and context. If you want to have your book open at the same time, you can open it up to page 124 as we go along. Um, so the other thing you may want to do is have the questions out that I asked you to answer, because I'll be going over the answers to each one of those questions. So you can go ahead and write down those answers. Make sure that you don't just copy things from the slide, and try to use your own words. Okay, so starting off with this first one, this is goes along with 4.5 about object pronouns. Now, we've talked about before this uh, possessive pronouns, and possessive pronouns are words like hers, his, yours, ours, theirs, and these are words that are used to show possessive. But we've also talked a little bit about subject pronouns, and subject pronouns are used in the subject position, which means that they're used before a verb. When we talk about an object pronoun, what we're talking about something that's used in the object position. So let's take a look at this slide here. So we said the subject pronouns here are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. So we can see in the sentence, I see the bride, you met my parents. Now in both of those, the subject pronouns come before the verb in the sentence. So that's how we identify them. Now the object pronouns are me. It's actually a mistake there. It should be me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. So we have the examples there. He loves her very much, and you met them last night, and he gave us the plant. So the difference between the object pronouns and the subject pronouns is that the object pronoun is going to come after the verb, or it can come after a preposition. So the example with the preposition is the last one, where it says he gave the plant to us. To is the preposition, and so we use the form us, not he gave the plant to we. So let's take a look at some practice here. So this isn't in your book, this is taken from online. What you should do is just go ahead and pause the video for a second, and you want to circle which one of the two pronouns should be used. Keep in mind the subject pronouns go before the verb, the object pronouns go after the verb or after a preposition. If you're not sure the difference between the subject and object pronouns, have page 125 open, and you'll have a list of both of them there. Okay, so here are the answers. So this first one, we say he has studied Kung Fu for years. He is the subject pronoun, and it comes before the verb. In this next one, the history of martial arts is interesting to him. Him is an object pronoun, and it comes after the preposition to. We know about many great warriors, a subject pronoun, and it's coming before the verb know. One of them was a 13-year-old girl named Xuan Guan. So them is an object pronoun, and it's coming after the preposition of. She lived during the Jin dynasty over 1600 years ago. She is a subject pronoun, and it's before the verb lived. Her people had a nickname for her. Her is an object pronoun, and it's coming after the preposition for. They called her little tigress. They is a subject pronoun, and it's coming before the verb called. When her town was attacked by bandits, no one would fight them. Them is an object pronoun, and it's coming after the verb fight. She was the only one brave enough. She is a subject pronoun, and it's coming before the verb was. Xuan fought her way through and went for help. Oh, sorry, went to help them. And them is an object pronoun, and it's coming after the verb help. Okay, so we will review more of this in class. So this is probably the most confusing part, and the thing that students tend to have the most difficulty with. And this question is, what is the difference between a direct object and an indirect object? Now, we just talked about object pronouns, and we said that object pronouns are things that go after verbs or after prepositions. When we're talking about direct and indirect objects, we can use this same idea. Normally, the direct object is the thing that comes after the verb, and the indirect object comes after a preposition. But let me break this down a little bit more specifically. So a direct object is something that receives the action of the verb. So for example, you say, I hit the ball. So in this case, the ball is the thing that was hit. So it is receiving the hit. He bought some ice cream. So in this case, the ice cream is the thing that is receiving the buying. Okay, so the buying happens to the ice cream. The way that you can determine the direct object in a sentence is by taking the subject and the verb and adding what or who to the end of it. The answer to that question is going to be your direct object. So in our first example, it's I hit the ball. I is the subject, the verb is hit, and then we're going to put what at the end because we're talking about an object. So I hit what? The answer to that is the ball. In the second one, the subject would be he and the verb would be bought. And so we're going to add what to the end, and you say he bought what? And the answer to that is ice cream. So this is how we find the direct object. So again, the direct object is receiving the action of the verb. The indirect object it shows who or what gets the direct object. So this can be a little bit confusing, but let's go ahead and take a look at this. So I hit the ball to my son. My son is the indirect object because I didn't hit my son, but my son received the ball. The ball is the direct object, and so my son received it. So he's considered the indirect object. He bought his sister ice cream. So in this case, he didn't buy his sister. He bought the ice cream, but his sister received the ice cream. So the way you can identify the indirect object is by asking who or what got the direct object. So in the first case, you'd say, who got the ball? And that's my son. And so that's the indirect object. You say in the second one, who got the ice cream? And that's his sister. So that is the direct object. So let's take a look at these ones. What I want you to do is just take a second and pause this. And in each one of these, you want to determine what's the direct object and what is the indirect object. And then once you're done with that, unpause it, and I'm going to go through it for you. Okay. So here we have the indirect objects are in red, and the direct objects are in green. So in the first one, we see here, Lisa told the children a story about an elephant. So to find the direct object, we're going to say subject, Lisa, verb, told, and then what? So Lisa told what? And the answer to that is a story. And who got the story? And the answer to that is children. So in the next one, we don't have a subject, but we would say give, we want to start off with the subject, which we don't have, and then the verb, and then what? So it would be give what? And the answer to that is a reason. And who got the reason? Me. So in the next one, we'll do the same thing. We need to find the direct object first. We take the subject, Pat, plus the verb, gave, and then add what? Pat gave what? And the answer to that is a record. And who got the record? Dick is the indirect object. So number 4, same thing. Subject is we, verb is mailed. We mailed what? And the answer is a package. Who got the package? Barbara. So the next one is please tell what? And the answer to that is address. Who got the address? Me. In the next one, same thing. Our subject here is the principal. Verb is gave. So the principal gave what? The answer to that is a lecture. Who received the lecture? Tim. The next one, same thing. Subject is I. Verb is will tell. So I will tell what? The truth. Who gets the truth? You. Number 8, our subject is Mrs. Barnes. Our verb is gave. So Mrs. Barnes gave what? And the answer is a reward. Who got the reward? Chris. So the next one, no subject, but we have please show, or show being the verb. So show what? And the answer to that is the best way, or way in this case. Who got the way? Me. So the next one, number 10, the subject is Norman. Verb is handed. So Norman handed what? He handed a tip. Who got the tip? The bellboy. So this is how we find our direct and indirect objects. Okay, we will go over this in class. It is confusing. Don't feel bad if it confuses you. All right. So one of the reasons why we want to know the difference between direct and indirect objects is that we have to know how we can use them in a sentence. So there's 2 different patterns that this book talks about with the indirect and direct object. So our first pattern, pattern A, and this same chart is on page 129. In pattern A, the pattern goes like this. We have subject, verb, indirect object, then direct object. So our example here is we gave the couple a gift. So we gave what? A gift. Who got the gift? The couple. So gift is the direct object and the couple is the indirect object. They sent us a card. Okay? So in this one we say they sent what? The answer is a card. Who got the card? Us. So the indirect object is us and the direct object is a card. So that's the first pattern, pattern A. Indirect first and then direct. Pattern B, we start off again, subject, verb, and then we have the direct object, and then we have the word to, and then we have the indirect object. So using the same example, we would say, we gave a gift to the couple. So to test to find the direct object, we say, we gave what? And the answer is a gift. And who got the couple? Sorry, who got the gift? And the answer to that is the couple. In the second one, we have they sent a card to us. So they sent what? A card, direct object. And who got the card? Us. Okay? Is the indirect object. Now, the important thing about this is that for a majority of verbs we can use both patterns, but for the verbs, the 7 verbs, I think, what is it, 8 verbs that are listed down there, we can only use pattern B. So the 8 verbs that we have to use pattern B for are announce, mention, say, describe, prove, suggest, explain, and report. So with those ones, we cannot use pattern A. We can only use pattern B. Okay, so that's why we need to know the difference between these two patterns and also between indirect and direct object. Okay, so here's some practice with that. Now you can write, with some of these, you can write them either way. So go ahead and pause this and write out these sentences putting the direct and the indirect object in the correct order. Now in each one of these, in the parentheses, the direct object is first and the indirect object is second. So go ahead and pause these and do these ones. All right. Now here, let's look at the answers here. So the first one says, the bride read a lovely poem to the groom. So in this case, the direct object, the bride read what? The poem. And we say to the groom. Okay, the indirect object. You could also have written down the bride read the groom a poem, a lovely poem. Both of those would be okay. So here, then the groom read her a poem too. So the groom read what? A poem. And who got the poem? Her. So we could also write then the groom read a poem to her. So number 3, I thought they sent an invitation to you. So they sent what? An invitation. Who got the invitation? You. So you could also write this. I thought they sent you an invitation. I wrote them a letter. I wrote what? And the answer to that is a letter. Who got the letter? Them. So we could also write this. I wrote a letter to them. The next one here. I explained my problem to them. So I explained what? My problem. Who got my problem? Or who got the explanation? And that would be them. Now, can we say, I explained them my problem? You should have answered no, because explain is one of the verbs that we have to use pattern B with. So this is the only way we can write it. Okay, so number 6, but I sent them a lovely present. So I sent what? And this would be a lovely present. Who got the present? Them. But we could also have this, but I sent a lovely present to them as well. All right. So the other reason why we need to know about direct and indirect object is because the difference between say and tell. Say and tell have basically the same meaning, but say is always followed by the direct object. And so whenever you use say, you have to use pattern B if there's an indirect object. Tell is always followed by the indirect object, so it always follows pattern A if you have a direct object. So let's take a look at that. So the bride and groom say, I do. So the bride and groom say what? They say, I do. She said her name. She said what? Her name. Or if I want to include the indirect object, we'd say she said her name to me. I can't say she said me her name. So with tell, we say they told the guests the wedding date. So they told what? The wedding date. Who got the wedding date? The guests. Okay, or we say she told me. In the next one, they told the musicians to start the music. So the thing that follows tell is always the indirect object. There is an exception. There's 2 expressions in English that don't follow this rule. One of them is tell the truth, and the other one is to tell a lie. So in both of those, they're followed by a direct object. It's incorrect in both cases to say a lie or to say the truth. This isn't the appropriate way that we do it, even though that's the rule that we should have. So let's take a look at these ones. So go ahead and you can pause this and answer these questions, and then take a look at the correct answers. All right, so the first one is, the bride said, "I love you." Okay, the bride said what? The answer is, "I love you." So with say, it has to be followed by the direct object. They told me the date of the wedding. So they told what? The date of the wedding. Who did they tell? Me. So tell has to be followed by the indirect object. You told me the groom's name, but I forgot it. You told what? The groom's name. Who got the groom's name? Me. So again, tell has to be followed by the indirect object. So next one, can you tell me where the wedding is? So again, tell is followed by the indirect object me. Tell the truth. Do you like the bride's new dress or the bride's dress? So in this case, tell the truth is that special case. We don't say the truth. The bride hates to say goodbye to her family. In this case, she says what? And the answer is goodbye. So say is followed by the direct object. Okay, and we just got two more sections here. So these are the reflexive pronouns. This is on page 132. Reflexive pronouns are only used when the subject and the object are the same. Now, one of the confusing things is that a lot of people misuse reflexive reflexive pronouns. But technically, the only time you want to use them is when the subject and the object are both the same. So in this first one, I pictured myself in a beautiful wedding dress. The subject is I. The object is also the subject is I, which is the first person singular, and the object is myself, which is also the first person singular. We tell ourselves that money makes us happy, but it's not true. So we is the first person plural, and ourselves is the first person singular. They like to look at themselves in their wedding photos. So again, we have they, which is the third person plural, and themselves, which is also the third person plural. So these are the different forms of them. One of the things to keep in mind is that there's some idiomatic expressions that always use reflexive pronouns. So with enjoy, like we enjoyed ourselves at the party, what that means is that we had a good time. We also say, please help yourself to the food, which means you're welcome to have some of the food, or make yourself comfortable. Again, these are idiomatic expressions. So let's take a look at these ones. And again, if you want to go ahead and pause this first, you can do that, and then I'll go over the answers. Okay. Whoops, sorry. So those are the examples. All right. So now moving on to our last point. And this is the difference between asking questions about the subject and asking questions about the complement. Here's the simple answer to that question. What the question is, what is the difference between questions about the subject and questions about the complement? The simple answer to that question is that questions about the subject do not use do, does, or did. So for example, we say, who paid for the wedding? The bride, not who did pay for the wedding. Or whose ring has a diamond? And the answer is the bride's ring, not whose ring does have a diamond. Okay? Because we're asking about the subject, when we make a question, we don't have any space we only have the question word. We don't have a separate space for the subject. But when we ask a question about the complement, we do have to include do, does, or did. So for example, who did you invite? And the answer to that is I invited my father. So we're asking about the complement, not the subject. Whose dress did she borrow? Her mother's. So we're asking about the answer to that. She borrowed her mother's dress. We're asking about the complement. Okay. Remember, when I say complement, I'm talking about what comes after the verb. So here's some examples here. So what did the bride pay for? Okay. In this case, we're asking about the complement. Or we can say who paid for the wedding. We're asking about the subject. Why do they stay at a hotel? We're asking about the complement. Who stays at a hotel? We're asking about the subject. Whose dress did the bride borrow? We're asking about the complement. Whose dress looks beautiful? We're asking about the subject. So here's some examples. Go ahead and try to make questions of these. So what we're asking for in this one is we want you to replace the word someone and ask the question about that. So these are the answers to those questions. So someone takes the bride to the groom, and the question is who takes the bride to the groom. This is asking about the subject, so we don't use do. Someone holds a ring. Who holds the ring? We're asking about the subject, so we don't use do. Someone's car has a just married sign. Whose car has a just married sign? We're asking about the subject. So the bride throws the bouquet. When? When does the bride throw the bouquet? So we're asking about the complement. So it would be the bride throws the bouquet at 10 o'clock. Okay. Some women try to catch the bouquet. Which women try to catch the bouquet? We're talking about the subject. The band plays music. What kind of music does the band play? Okay, we're asking about the complement, not the subject. Okay, so I know that this was a really long video, and I apologize for that. But hopefully it's helpful, and we'll go over it in more detail in class. Take care. Bye.